A Chinese physicist just made contact with something drifting through our solar system. An interstellar object with signals that defy every known law. His unauthorized experiment triggered a response. Now it's coming closer. This isn't science fiction. It's real. And his warning has gone ignored until now. The rogue genius from China. Dr. Ling Wei was no stranger to controversy. Across China's scientific circles, he had built a reputation as both a visionary physicist and a disruptive voice. Known for his work in quantum field dynamics, Ling often challenged international consensus, accusing Western institutions of hiding breakthroughs that could alter our understanding of the universe. By 2025, he had become a scientific exile until an unexpected reappearance beneath the Swiss Alps inside the core of the CERN collider. Ling wasn't there by chance. Under a covert Sino-European partnership, he was brought in to consult on a new particle field experiment known as Project A. The official narrative said it was about high-energy magnetic interactions. But privately, Ling had a different goal. He believed that certain electromagnetic frequencies generated during collider events could act as resonant beacons, signals powerful enough to reach deep space, maybe even touch something waiting out there. His peers at CERN dismissed it. They called it theoretical fantasy. But Ling pressed forward, convinced the collider could open what he described as a window into the unknown. And then during one unassuming morning run, everything changed. His experiment, scheduled as routine, triggered a signal, not from Earth. It wasn't background noise or interference. It was organized. It was precise. It pulsed. "We didn't send a message," Ling later said. "We answered one." This unexpected moment of contact would launch him into the center of the most important and most dangerous discovery of the century. It happened on a cold, cloudless morning in September 2025. While most of the staff at CERN focused on routine calibration for the day's collider runs, Dr. Ling Wei was running a very different script quietly and without entering it into the system logs. Ling modified the parameters of the Large Hadron Collider's magnetic pulse cycle. What he initiated was technically still part of Project A, the officially sanctioned experiment exploring magnetic field interactions with cosmic rays. But Ling had added something more, something unauthorized. Using a subroutine embedded in the power frequency modulators, he introduced a series of unregistered electromagnetic pulses, short high-frequency bursts designed to echo outward beyond Earth's atmosphere. These weren't meant for particles. They were meant for space. Privately, Ling referred to this layer of the test as a deep field resonance probe, his attempt to reach what he believed were cosmic intelligence signatures. Colleagues had called the idea absurd, even dangerous, but he did it anyway. At precisely 3:14 Universal Time, everything changed. The collider's detectors, buried over 100 meters beneath the Swiss Alps, suddenly lit up with a reading unlike anything they were designed to handle. The data spike wasn't chaotic. It was clean, precise, a coherent frequency oscillating at a steady rhythm. It didn't match any known particle interaction or terrestrial origin. The waveform was structured, intelligent. Initially, technicians suspected a fault in the equipment. Some assumed it was solar interference or perhaps a power surge, but Ling knew immediately. He'd been watching the pulse patterns in real time, and the frequency wasn't random. It was exactly 147 seconds between peaks, a number that had already been linked to a strange new visitor from interstellar space. The source of the signal was soon triangulated. It was coming from 3I/Atlas, an object detected just weeks earlier by the Atlas telescope in Chile. Initially classified as another interstellar comet, it had already baffled astronomers with its reverse tail, increased brightness away from the sun, and a slow, rhythmic pulsing. Now it was responding. Ling didn't hesitate. He kept the collider active, overriding shutdown protocols. For the next 11 minutes, data streamed in. Not static, not radiation, but a patterned return signal fluctuating slightly with each pulse, as if reacting to the collider's electromagnetic fields in real time. The readings were unlike anything CERN had ever recorded. Later, when Ling was interrogated by facility officials and security personnel, he gave only one explanation. "I knew what it was the moment I saw the symmetry." Within hours, the entire experiment log was classified. Ling's access credentials were revoked and all outbound communications from the collider were suspended under emergency protocols. CERN released no public statement, but the signal had already been heard. And worse, it had heard us. From that point forward, it wasn't just a machine running an experiment. It was a conversation, and Ling was the one who had answered first. The object now known as 3I/Atlas was first detected on July 1, 2025 by the Atlas telescope in Chile. At first, it seemed like just another visitor from deep space, similar to Oumuamua or 2I/Borisov. But almost immediately, astronomers realized this wasn't like anything they'd seen before. It wasn't just an object on a fast path through our solar system. It was something else entirely. For one, its size was staggering. Estimates placed it at nearly 11 kilometers across, much larger than any previously observed interstellar object. But more baffling was its behavior. Normal comets brighten as they approach the sun, their icy surfaces vaporizing and forming glowing tails. But 3I/Atlas did the opposite. It became brighter the farther it moved from the sun, violating every known law of thermodynamics and solar interaction. That alone would have sparked global headlines. And then came the tail. Traditional comets formed tails that stream away from the sun, pushed by solar wind. But Atlas's tail pointed directly toward the sun. This reversed orientation didn't make sense unless something about the object was resisting solar forces or was actively controlling its own movement. But the most bizarre aspect was its rhythm. Using data from the James Webb Space Telescope, scientists discovered that the object pulsed every 147 seconds with a measurable electromagnetic signature. It was a cosmic heartbeat, regular and undisturbed, as if it were keeping time. Some theorized internal processes or rotation, but the signal strength and consistency didn't align with natural comet behavior. Dr. Ling Wei was the first to notice something no one else did. When he compared the 3I/Atlas pulse data to the frequency signature his collider picked up during that unauthorized test, he saw an exact match, not similar, exact. That moment, Ling would later say, was when I knew we weren't just observing it, we were interacting with it. The implications were staggering. If the object's signal was reacting to human technology, if it heard CERN's field pulses, then it wasn't a rock. It was a sensor or a probe, possibly even a kind of interstellar watcher. Astronomers in China using the Purple Mountain Observatory quickly corroborated Ling's findings. And that's when the tone shifted. What began as curiosity turned into cautious investigation. If 3I/Atlas was transmitting a signal, then someone or something was listening. The next discovery would remove all doubt. Following the signal's appearance at 3:14 Universal Time, Dr. Ling noticed something even more alarming. As the collider's magnetic field cycled through power-down procedures, the pulse from 3I/Atlas shifted almost in sync. It was mirroring CERN's activity, not randomly, not occasionally, consistently. The changes in field intensity within the collider appeared to be reflected in real time by the interstellar object. This wasn't just weird, it was impossible under natural physics. Soon after, radio telescopes in Italy and China both detected microwave bursts from the coordinates of 3I/Atlas, arriving precisely during the collider's fluctuation window. The timing was too exact to ignore. Ling realized they weren't just picking up a passive cosmic pulse. They were in communication. For 11 minutes and 37 seconds, the Large Hadron Collider had become a device it was never meant to be. It wasn't just a particle accelerator. It had functioned as a transceiver, sending signals into space and receiving intelligent responses. Ling later described the moment as terrifying, not because of what they'd found, but because of what it meant. The object was watching us. It wasn't some blind signal bouncing through space. He said it reacted to us. It changed because of us. Immediately after the event, CERN's response was swift and secretive. Access to the experiment logs was revoked. Communications from Ling's team were suspended. Internal servers flagged the data as Level 4 containment, a classification typically reserved for existential risk scenarios. Whatever was in that signal, officials didn't want it going public. But Ling had already taken copies. Back in Beijing, he sent encrypted files to trusted physicists across several universities. Not only did the pulse match 3I/Atlas's rhythm, it showed reactive patterns tied directly to CERN's energy outputs. Ling believed the object was absorbing or responding to specific frequencies. More than that, he believed it had been waiting for the right one. This marked the turning point. Scientists couldn't explain it. Officials wouldn't talk about it. But Ling, he'd already moved to the next phase, decoding the message inside the signal. A message written in prime and phi. When Dr. Ling Wei returned to Beijing, he wasn't a researcher anymore. He was a messenger. Hidden inside the 11 minutes of recorded data was a mathematical sequence no one at CERN had been authorized to decrypt. Using his private servers, Ling began analyzing the waveforms, running frequency to number translations. What emerged stunned everyone who saw it. The transmission wasn't random. It contained a series of prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17. To anyone trained in astrophysics, this was clear. Prime numbers are universal. They are the mathematical language of intelligence. The primes repeated in cycles. But that wasn't all. When the same data was converted into visual form by AI systems in Shanghai, the wave patterns revealed geometric ratios tied to 1.618, the golden ratio or phi, a number seen across nature, architecture, and even in the DNA helix. Ling's assistants thought it was a coincidence. Ling didn't. Patterns like these, he said, don't just happen. They're designed. Even more unsettling was the shape hidden within the data. When visualized in 3D, the signal formed a spiral lattice that perfectly matched the flight path of 3I/Atlas through the solar system. It was as if the object was describing itself, its own position and motion using a universal mathematical code, a form of cosmic self-identification. By October 2025, the Chinese Academy of Sciences quietly verified Ling's results. The data wasn't corrupted. The signal was real, measurable, and structured. And yet, not a single Western institution publicly acknowledged the findings. At CERN, officials downplayed the event as instrumental interference. But independent labs in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Nanjing confirmed identical patterns. Ling believed this was the first stage of contact. The primes were a handshake. The phi ratio was the introduction, and the final part, the spiral form, was the object's way of saying, "Here I am." To Ling, that was both exciting and horrifying. Because if 3I/Atlas had sent a map, it meant the signal wasn't just for us. It was also a beacon for others. He began to call it the invitation code, warning that the moment we decoded it, we might trigger a deeper communication protocol. In one of his leaked interviews, Ling said, "Mathematics is the language of the universe. But what if we just spoke first without knowing the meaning of what we said?" That question would lead him to an even stranger discovery. The object's method of communication itself. What he found next would suggest that 3I/Atlas wasn't sending signals at all. It was entangled with us. By late 2025, scientists around the world were trying to explain how an object over 3 billion kilometers away could respond in real time to a collider under the Swiss Alps. No known form of electromagnetic transmission could account for the 12-minute time discrepancy CERN had recorded during the initial contact. The only explanation, however unthinkable, was that 3I/Atlas wasn't transmitting across space in the normal sense. It was using something faster. Chinese quantum laboratories in Hefei and Guangzhou began studying the object's pulse rate. They discovered that the 147-second cycle matched Earth's own Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic frequency between our planet's surface and ionosphere. The object wasn't just active, it was synchronized with Earth. Ling proposed that it had identified our planet's frequency and locked onto it, using it as a carrier signal. But what came next was even more bizarre. Roughly 57 minutes after each Earth-based transmission from CERN, satellites orbiting Mars detected faint echoes, bursts repeating the same pulse pattern that created a triangulated communication network among Earth, Mars, and 3I/Atlas. The geometry was exact, as if the object was coordinating a multi-node system across the solar system. It didn't just listen, it organized. Infrared imaging from Chinese orbital telescopes revealed micro-distortions around the object, ripples of energy resembling particle lensing. Some physicists described it as space bending around an invisible structure, possibly an electromagnetic shield. To Ling, this was confirmation. 3I/Atlas was no natural body. It was engineered. He wrote in his final lab notes, "It knows where we are, and it understands what we use to see it." CERN's official position remained silent, but internal communications leaked from Geneva suggested that multiple collider tests after the event failed to reproduce the anomaly. Meanwhile, China doubled down. The Tianqian quantum network was established to monitor every signal pulse from the object in real time, and for the first time in history, a civilian SETI lab worked directly under military supervision. Ling warned colleagues that the object's reactions were not passive observation, but active monitoring, a constant scanning of all planetary sources emitting technological noise. "We think we're studying it," he said, "but it's studying us faster." The discovery tore open a global debate. Was 3I/Atlas a message, a machine, or a mirror? That question would soon divide the scientific world and pit China and the West on opposite sides of a cosmic mystery. By November 2025, the signals from 3I/Atlas had triggered more than just scientific curiosity. They sparked a quiet war between belief and denial. As the object moved deeper into the inner solar system, two distinct camps emerged across the global research community. On one side, traditional Western astronomers who insisted the signals were anomalies, misread data, cosmic coincidence, or statistical flukes. On the other, a growing group of Chinese astrophysicists led by Dr. Ling Wei who were convinced this was intentional communication. Officially, NASA, ESA, and CERN said very little. Internal memos, however, painted a different picture. Labs across Europe and North America were told to cease independent observations of 3I/Atlas. Observatory logs went dark. Peer-reviewed publications that had once openly discussed the object's strange behavior began quietly retracting papers,